The Rock helped an elderly woman on the street who needed to go to the hospital in an emergency. The morning sun cast long shadows across Beverly Hills as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson stepped out of his favorite coffee shop, a steaming cup of his usual black coffee in hand. The familiar aroma of freshly ground beans mixed with the crisp Los Angeles air, creating one of those perfect California mornings that made him grateful for every opportunity life had given him. He had just finished an intense 3-hour workout at his private gym, pushing through his legendary training routine that had started at 4 a.m. sharp, just as it had for the past 15 years of his life. The street was relatively quiet for a Tuesday morning, with only a few dedicated joggers in their designer athletic wear and well-groomed dog walkers enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of one of LA's most exclusive neighborhoods. Palm trees swayed gently in the morning breeze, and the distant hum of traffic on Sunset Boulevard provided a familiar soundtrack to the beginning of another busy day. As he walked toward his black Ford F-150 Raptor, custom detailed and equipped with all the latest technology, The Rock's mind was already racing through his packed schedule. He had a conference call with his production company at 10, followed by a script reading for his next action thriller, then lunch with his business partners to discuss expanding his tequila brand internationally. The afternoon would bring interviews with entertainment reporters about his upcoming Netflix series, and the evening was reserved for family time with his daughters. But all of those plans suddenly became secondary when something about 50 yards ahead caught his attention and made him pause mid-stride. An elderly woman was sitting on a weathered bus bench, but everything about her posture screamed distress. She was hunched over as if protecting herself from an invisible threat, one hand pressed firmly against her chest while the other gripped the edge of the metal bench so tightly that her knuckles had turned completely white. Even from a distance, Dwayne could see that something was seriously wrong. Without a moment's hesitation, his protective instincts, honed through years of playing heroic characters and, more importantly, being raised by strong women who taught him to always help others, kicked into high gear. He quickened his pace, his coffee forgotten as he focused entirely on the woman who clearly needed help. As he approached, he could see her more clearly. She appeared to be in her late 70s, with silver hair neatly pulled back in a bun that suggested a lifetime of careful grooming and personal pride. She wore a modest floral dress in soft blues and yellows that reminded him instantly of his beloved grandmother Leah, who had passed away just 2 years earlier. Her breathing was visibly labored, coming in short, shallow gasps, and beads of perspiration dotted her forehead and upper lip despite the cool morning temperature of barely 65 degrees. "Ma'am, are you all right?" The Rock asked gently, his voice carrying the warmth and genuine concern that had endeared him to millions of fans worldwide. He crouched down to her eye level, making his imposing 6'5" frame less intimidating while still positioning himself to help if needed. The woman looked up slowly, her brown eyes wide with both surprise and what appeared to be relief at seeing another human being who cared enough to stop. Recognition flickered across her weathered but kind face. "Oh my goodness," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the morning traffic. You're that nice young man from the movies, the one who's always so polite in interviews." She attempted to smile, but the expression quickly transformed into a grimace of pain. "I'm so sorry to bother you, dear. I know you must be terribly busy with important things. I can't seem to catch my breath properly, and there's this terrible pressure in my chest." "You're not bothering me at all," Dwayne assured her, immediately setting his expensive coffee aside without a second thought and pulling out his latest iPhone. "You're the most important thing happening in my world right now. What's your name, ma'am?" "Dorothy," she managed between increasingly shallow breaths, each word seeming to require significant effort. "Dorothy Martinez. I've lived in this neighborhood for 37 years, ever since my husband got his job at the aerospace company. I was waiting for the number 42 bus to take me to my doctor's appointment downtown. I've been having some heart troubles lately, but I started feeling dizzy and lightheaded, and then this crushing pain in my chest started." She pressed her hand more firmly against her sternum, and The Rock immediately recognized the classic signs of a potential cardiac event. His expression grew serious as his mind shifted into crisis management mode. drawing on the basic medical training he'd received for his action movie roles and his natural leadership abilities that had served him well both in professional wrestling and Hollywood. "Dorothy, I think we need to get you to a hospital right now," he said with gentle but unmistakable authority. "What you're describing sounds like it could be related to your heart, and we don't want to take any chances with something that serious." Dorothy's eyes immediately filled with tears of frustration and embarrassment. "Oh dear, I can't afford an ambulance ride. Do you know they charge over $2,000 just to transport you a few miles? And I don't want to be a burden to anyone. My Medicare doesn't cover everything, and I've already spent so much on my medications this month." She tried to straighten up, attempting to appear stronger than she felt. "Maybe if I just sit here for a little while longer and rest, I'll feel better. Sometimes these episodes pass on their own. Dorothy, listen to me very carefully," Dwayne said, his voice firm but incredibly kind. "You are not going anywhere, except to get the medical help you need right now. And don't you worry about the cost for even 1 second. I'm going to take you to the hospital myself, and we're going to make sure you get the best care available." Before Dorothy could formulate any protest, The Rock was already dialing 911 on his phone. "Yes, this is Dwayne Johnson." He spoke clearly into the device while keeping his free hand gently but reassuringly on Dorothy's shoulder. "I have an elderly woman here experiencing chest pain, shortness of breath, and dizziness. We're going to transport her to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center ourselves in my vehicle, but I want paramedics and emergency staff to be ready for our arrival. Her name is Dorothy Martinez, and she's approximately 77 years old with a history of heart problems." As he provided additional details to the emergency dispatcher, Dorothy looked at him with amazement and growing emotional overwhelm. "You don't even know me," she whispered, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "I'm just some random old lady sitting at a bus stop. Why would someone like you, someone famous and successful and important, why would you do this for me?" The Rock finished his call and then gave Dorothy his complete attention, his famous smile radiating genuine warmth and compassion. "My grandmother always taught me that we're all family in this world, Dorothy. She used to say that the measure of a person isn't how they treat the people who can do something for them, but how they treat the people who need their help." He paused, his own eyes showing emotion. "Besides, I have 2 daughters, and I hope and pray that if they're ever in trouble when they're older, if they're ever scared and alone and need help, someone will stop and care for them the way I want to care for you right now." Getting Dorothy into his elevated truck proved to be a delicate challenge, but Dwayne's considerable strength and gentle touch made it manageable. He lifted her as carefully as possible, supporting her full weight while ensuring she felt secure and comfortable. Once she was settled in the passenger seat, he adjusted everything, the seat position, the air conditioning, the radio volume, to make her as comfortable as possible. As he carefully fastened her seatbelt, Dorothy reached out with a trembling hand and grasped his much larger one. "What if I'm having a real heart attack?" she whispered, the fear evident in every word. "What if this is it? What if I die and leave my grandchildren without ever telling them how much I love them one more time?" The Rock squeezed her hand gently but firmly, his eyes meeting hers with unwavering confidence. "Then we're going to get you the absolute best medical care available in this city, and we're going to fight this together," he replied without hesitation. "But Dorothy, I want you to listen to me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be right here with you through whatever happens next. We're going to get through this together, and then you're going to have plenty of opportunities to tell your grandchildren exactly how much you love them." As they drove through the winding, tree-lined streets of Beverly Hills toward the hospital, The Rock maintained a steady stream of conversation designed to keep Dorothy calm and distracted from her symptoms. He told her about his daughters, Jasmine and Tiana, and how they had taught him more about life and love than any movie role ever could. He shared stories about his upcoming projects, his passion for fitness and motivating others, and his deep appreciation for the simple moments that make life meaningful. "Tell me about your family, Dorothy," he encouraged as they navigated through increasingly heavy traffic. "You mentioned grandchildren?" Despite her discomfort and fear, Dorothy found herself relaxing slightly as she focused on the people she loved most. "I have 3 grandchildren who are my whole world," she said, her voice growing stronger as she spoke about them. Maria is 22 and studying to become a pediatric nurse, just like I used to be before I retired. She's so smart and compassionate. She wants to help children who are sick, and she volunteers at the children's hospital on weekends. Her breathing seemed to ease slightly as she continued. Then there's Carlos, who just turned 17. He's brilliant with mathematics and science, and he wants to be an engineer like his grandfather was. He builds these incredible robots and computer programs, and he's always trying to teach me about technology. She managed a small laugh. And little Sophia just turned 8 years old last month. She's got this wild imagination and wants to be a writer. She makes up the most wonderful stories about princesses and dragons and brave knights. They must be incredibly proud of their grandmother, Dwayne said, skillfully navigating through traffic while keeping one eye on Dorothy and monitoring her condition. What kind of nursing did you do before you retired? Dorothy's face lit up with unmistakable pride. Pediatric nursing for 42 years at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. I helped bring hundreds of babies into this world and cared for thousands of children during their most vulnerable moments. I was there for midnight feedings and scared toddlers who missed their parents. I held the hands of teenagers facing serious surgeries and comforted parents who were terrified for their children's lives. The Rock felt his admiration for this remarkable woman growing with every word. Now I understand why you seem so strong and brave even when you're scared, he said, sincerely. You've been taking care of people and making them feel safe your entire adult life. Today it's your turn to be taken care of, and you deserve nothing less than the very best. As they approached the imposing glass and steel structure of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Dorothy's breathing became noticeably more labored again. The Rock could see the emergency room entrance ahead and felt a surge of relief knowing that professional medical help was just moments away. He pulled up directly to the emergency bay, where paramedics were already waiting with a wheelchair and emergency equipment, having been thoroughly briefed about their arrival. "We've got you now, Mrs. Martinez," one of the paramedics said confidently, as they helped Dorothy from the truck with practiced efficiency. The Rock stayed close, providing Dorothy's personal information, medical history, and insurance details to the medical team as they quickly but carefully wheeled her through the automatic doors into the bustling emergency department. The emergency room was a controlled chaos of medical professionals, concerned family members, and patients in various stages of distress. Monitors beeped constantly, overhead pages announced urgent needs, and the fluorescent lighting cast everything in a stark, clinical glow. Despite the overwhelming environment, Dorothy felt anchored and secure because The Rock had managed to stay by her side through the initial intake process, using his celebrity status and natural charisma to ensure she received immediate attention from the medical staff. "Sir, are you family?" a nurse asked as they prepared to take Dorothy for comprehensive testing and evaluation. Before Dwayne could formulate an answer, Dorothy reached out and grabbed his hand with surprising strength. She looked directly at the nurse with clear, determined eyes. "Yes, he's my grandson," she said firmly, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades advocating for patients. "My grandson Dwayne, and I need him to stay with me." The Rock squeezed her hand and nodded respectfully to the nurse. "I'll be right here, Grandma Dorothy. I'm not going anywhere." As the medical team worked efficiently on Dorothy, running EKGs to monitor her heart rhythm, drawing blood for comprehensive testing, checking her vital signs, and asking detailed questions about her symptoms and medical history, The Rock made several important phone calls. First, he called his personal assistant to cancel all of his morning meetings and appointments, explaining that he had a family emergency that required his immediate attention. Then he called his personal physician, Dr. Michael Stevens, to ensure that Dorothy would receive the absolute best possible care and to arrange for any specialists who might be needed. Finally, he used his extensive network of connections in Los Angeles to arrange for a private room in the hospital's VIP wing, regardless of Dorothy's insurance coverage or financial limitations. 2.5 hours later, Dr. Sarah Chen, a distinguished cardiologist with over 20 years of experience, emerged from the examination room with a cautiously optimistic expression. She approached The Rock, who had been pacing the waiting room, checking on other patients, signing autographs for hospital staff, and generally spreading his positive energy throughout the emergency department. "Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Martinez is going to be perfectly fine," Dr. Chen announced with a professional smile that didn't quite hide her relief. She experienced what we call a mild cardiac episode, brought on by a combination of stress, dehydration, and some medication interactions that we've now identified and corrected. There's no permanent damage to her heart muscle, and her overall cardiac function is actually quite good for someone her age. The visible relief on Dwayne's face was immediate and profound. "That's wonderful news, doctor. What's the treatment plan going forward?" "A few days of rest and observation here in the hospital, some adjustments to her current medications, and a comprehensive cardiac rehabilitation program that will help strengthen her heart and improve her overall health," Dr. Chen explained. "With proper care and follow-up, there's no reason she can't continue living an active, independent life for many years to come." "Can I see her now?" The Rock asked eagerly. When Dwayne entered Dorothy's private room, he was delighted to see that she was sitting up in bed looking dramatically better than she had just hours earlier. Her color had returned to normal. She was breathing easily and naturally, and there was a brightness in her eyes that hadn't been there on the bus bench. The hospital gown somehow didn't diminish her natural dignity, and she had managed to fix her hair despite everything she'd been through. "There's my hero," she said with a genuine, radiant smile that transformed her entire face. "You're the hero, Dorothy," he replied immediately, taking a comfortable seat in the chair beside her. "Bed. 42 years of pediatric nursing. You've saved more lives and touched more hearts than I ever will in my entire career. You've been a real-life superhero for decades." They talked for over 2 hours about everything and nothing. Their families, their dreams, their fears, their proudest moments, and their deepest regrets. Dorothy told him about her late husband, Roberto, who had passed away from cancer 3 years earlier after 52 years of marriage. She described how lonely and purposeless she had been feeling lately, especially since her retirement had left her with too much time to think and worry. "Roberto was my best friend, my partner in everything," she explained, her eyes growing distant with memory. "We used to take long walks every evening, talking about our days, our plans, our grandchildren's futures. Since he's been gone, I feel like I'm just existing, going through the motions without any real purpose or meaning." The Rock leaned forward, his expression serious but compassionate. "Dorothy, I want to share something with you. I've struggled with depression myself, particularly after my divorce and during some difficult transitions in my career. What I've learned is that sometimes our purpose changes, but it never disappears completely. We just have to be open to discovering what it looks like in this new chapter of our lives." Dorothy nodded thoughtfully. "You know, I was actually on my way to tell my doctor today that I didn't think I wanted to continue with my treatments anymore." "What treatments?" The Rock asked, his concern immediately evident. "I've been dealing with some ongoing health issues, nothing life-threatening, but chronic conditions that require expensive medications and regular monitoring," Dorothy explained quietly. "The medications cost over $600 a month, even with my insurance, and I've been feeling like such a financial burden on my children and grandchildren. This morning, walking to that bus stop, I was seriously considering telling my doctor that I wanted to just stop fighting and let nature take its course." The Rock stood up abruptly and began pacing, his emotional response clearly visible. "Dorothy, look at me," he said, stopping directly in front of her bed. "You are not a burden. You are a treasure, a living treasure with decades of wisdom, experience, and love to share. Think about all those children you helped heal, all those families you comforted during their darkest hours. Think about Maria, Carlos, and little Sophia, and how much they need their grandmother's guidance and love." Tears began flowing down Dorothy's cheeks, but they seemed to be tears of release rather than despair. "But I feel so useless now. So disconnected from anything meaningful." "Useless?" The Rock's voice rose with incredulous emotion. "Dorothy, in the few hours I've known you, you've reminded me why I do what I do in the first place. You've shown me true strength, dignity, and grace in the face of fear and uncertainty. You've made me want to be a better person, a better father, a better human being. He stopped pacing and looked directly into her eyes. If that's what you call useless, then I desperately need more useless people in my life. Before Dorothy could respond, there was a gentle knock at the door. A young woman in medical scrubs peered in hesitantly, clearly nervous about interrupting, but determined to speak. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Dorothy Martinez?" she asked softly. "Yes, dear, I am," Dorothy replied, wiping her eyes and trying to compose herself. "I'm Maria Santos, and I'm one of the cardiac nurses here at Cedars-Sinai," the young woman said, stepping closer to the bed. "I heard about what happened to you today, and I just had to come and tell you something. I became a nurse because of you." Dorothy looked genuinely confused. "I'm sorry, dear, but I don't think I remember you. Are you sure you have the right person?" Maria's eyes filled with tears as she moved closer. 15 years ago, my little brother Miguel was a patient in the pediatric ICU at Children's Hospital. He was only 6 years old, and he had suffered a serious accident that left him with multiple injuries, including a broken leg and severe pneumonia. You were his primary nurse for 2 weeks. Dorothy's expression began to change as memories started surfacing. "Miguel. Little Miguel with the big brown eyes and the Spider-Man pajamas." "That's him," Maria exclaimed, her voice breaking with emotion. "Mrs. Martinez, you held my mother's hand every single night while she cried and prayed for her son to recover. You sang lullabies to Miguel when he couldn't sleep because of the pain. You taught me and my sister how to read to him and make him laugh even when he was scared and hurting." The Rock watched this extraordinary reunion unfold, feeling his own emotions stirring as he witnessed the profound impact of Dorothy's life's work. "You probably cared for hundreds of children and don't remember each one specifically," Maria continued. "But you saved our entire family that week. Not just Miguel's life, but our faith, our hope, our belief that there were still good people in the world who cared about strangers." She paused to wipe her eyes. "Miguel is a paramedic now, inspired by all the medical professionals who helped him recover, and I became a nurse because I wanted to be like you, someone who brings comfort and healing to people during their most frightening moments." As Maria prepared to leave, she turned back one more time. "Mrs. Martinez, I want you to know that there are dozens of us throughout this hospital system. Nurses, doctors, therapists, and technicians who were inspired to pursue healthcare careers because of the compassion you showed us or our family members years ago. Your legacy lives on in every patient we care for." After Maria left, Dorothy sat in stunned silence, processing this unexpected revelation. The Rock could practically see the transformation happening in her mind and heart as she began to understand the true scope of her life's impact. "Still think you're useless?" he asked gently, settling back into his chair. That afternoon, the Rock arranged for Dorothy's granddaughter Maria, the nursing student, not the cardiac nurse, to come to the hospital. The reunion was intensely emotional, with 22-year-old Maria scolding her beloved grandmother for not calling her immediately when she started feeling unwell. "Abuela, you taught me to be strong and independent, but that doesn't mean we don't need each other," Maria said, holding Dorothy's weathered hands in her young, smooth ones. "You're not a burden. You're our anchor, our source of wisdom and love. We need you now more than ever." As the day progressed and Dorothy's condition continued to improve, word of the Rock's extraordinary kindness began to spread throughout the hospital staff and eventually reached the entertainment media. Nurses and doctors who had worked with Dorothy years earlier at Children's Hospital made special trips to visit her. Former patients, now adults with children of their own, somehow learned of her hospitalization and sent flowers, cards, and heartfelt messages describing how her care had impacted their lives. But Dwayne remained focused primarily on Dorothy's comfort and well-being and on making concrete plans for her ongoing care and support. "Dorothy, I want to discuss something important with you," he said as evening approached and the hospital began to quiet down. "I want to help with your medical expenses. All of them, ongoing and indefinitely." "Oh, Dwayne, I absolutely could not allow you to do that," Dorothy protested immediately. "You've already done so much, and I won't accept charity no matter how kindly it's offered." The Rock smiled, having anticipated this response. "It's not charity, Dorothy. It's a business proposition. You see, I've been thinking about starting a foundation to help elderly people with medical costs, transportation to appointments, and social support services. The problem is, I need someone with extensive medical experience and a deep understanding of what seniors actually need to help me design and run this organization. Dorothy's eyes widened with interest and surprise. "You're serious about this?" "Completely serious," he replied. "I need someone who understands both the healthcare system from a professional perspective and the challenges seniors face from a personal perspective. Someone with credibility, compassion, and the respect of the medical community." He leaned forward. "I need you, Dorothy. Will you consider working with me to help other people who are facing the same struggles you've been dealing with?" "You're offering me a job?" Dorothy asked, hardly believing what she was hearing. "I'm offering you a partnership," The Rock corrected. "Part-time, flexible schedule, excellent benefits, competitive salary, and the opportunity to make a real difference in people's lives during a stage of life when society often makes them feel invisible and worthless." Dorothy was quiet for several long moments, processing this unexpected turn of events. Finally, she looked up at Dwayne with tears in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I would be honored to work with you." 3 months later, The Rock and Dorothy stood together at the grand opening celebration of the Dorothy Martinez Foundation for Senior Care. The event was held at a beautiful community center in Dorothy's own neighborhood, and the guest list included not just celebrities, major donors, and local politicians, but dozens of families whose lives Dorothy had touched during her decades of nursing. The foundation's mission was comprehensive, providing financial assistance for medical expenses, arranging transportation to medical appointments, offering in-home companionship services, creating social programs to combat loneliness and isolation, and advocating for senior-friendly policies at the local and state level. As Dorothy cut the ceremonial ribbon, wearing a beautiful new dress that The Rock had insisted on buying for the occasion, she looked over at her famous partner and mouthed, "Thank you for saving my life." He smiled back and replied, "Thank you for reminding me what life is really about." The foundation's impact was immediate and profound. Within the first year, they had helped over 500 seniors with medical expenses, arranged thousands of transportation trips to medical appointments, and created social programs that brought isolated elderly people together for meals, activities, and friendship. Dorothy thrived in her new role, bringing not only her medical expertise but also her natural empathy and understanding of what it meant to feel forgotten by society. She became the public face of the organization, sharing her story at fundraising events, speaking to healthcare professionals about senior care, and personally counseling elderly individuals who were struggling with feelings of uselessness and despair. The Rock, meanwhile, discovered that this work brought him more satisfaction than any movie role or business success ever had. He regularly visited with foundation clients, attended Dorothy's speaking engagements, and used his platform to raise awareness about the challenges facing America's aging population. 5 years later, when entertainment reporters would ask The Rock about that fateful morning in Beverly Hills, he would always give the same heartfelt response. "I thought I was helping Dorothy get to the hospital that day, but the truth is, she was the one who saved me. She reminded me that true strength isn't measured by how much weight you can lift or how tough you can appear on screen. Real strength is about showing up for people when they need you most, about recognizing the value and dignity in every human being regardless of their age or circumstances." Dorothy, now in her 80s and still working part-time for the foundation despite numerous offers to fully retire, would often share her transformation story with new volunteers and donors. She would always end her presentation the same way. "That morning when I was sitting on that bus bench, I thought my life was essentially over. I felt forgotten, useless, and ready to give up on fighting for my health and happiness. But sometimes, when we think we're at our absolute lowest point, life sends us exactly what we need, even if it comes in a form we never could have imagined. My angel just happened to be a very large, very kind man who drives a pickup truck and reminds people that we're all family in this world." The Rock and Dorothy remained extraordinarily close friends for the rest of her life. He visited her regularly, celebrated every birthday and holiday with her extended family, and she became like a third grandmother to his daughters, teaching them about resilience, compassion, and the importance of treating every person with dignity and respect. When Dorothy finally passed away peacefully at the age of 89, surrounded by 3 generations of family and friends, The Rock delivered a moving eulogy at her funeral service, speaking to a packed church that included celebrities, medical professionals, foundation staff, and hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by Dorothy's kindness. He said, "Dorothy Martinez taught me that heroism isn't about being famous or physically strong or having your name in lights. True heroism is about being present when someone needs you, about seeing the value in every human being, about refusing to let anyone feel alone or forgotten. She showed me that sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply stop and care about a stranger who needs help." The Dorothy Martinez Foundation continues to operate and expand today, a lasting testament to what can happen when one person's moment of crisis becomes another person's calling, and when genuine kindness creates ripple effects that touch countless lives across generations. The foundation has helped over 10,000 seniors and their families, and Dorothy's story continues to inspire people around the world to look for opportunities to make a difference in someone else's life. Most importantly, the foundation serves as a reminder that every person, regardless of age, circumstances, or perceived usefulness to society, has inherent worth and dignity, and that sometimes all it takes to change someone's entire life trajectory is the simple act of stopping to help when help is needed most.